Right, hey folks, this video is going to be going over packet pages 3. We're actually going to skip over 4, and then page 5 and 6. Alright, so this is a video for pages 3. We're going to skip over 4, and then pages 5 and 6. Now I do want to point out that at the bottom of page 3, we are using these purple values that you see here. These are actually the answers from the chart on page 1. And the other day in class, we actually calculated everything on page 1. I'll go back so that you know what I'm talking about. At the bottom of page 1, we already filled in this column to get the sale price. And those are the answers that we start out with in the packet right here. Now, before we get to this part of the page, let me go back up real quick and just talk a little bit about sales tax. There are a lot of different types of tax out there. For example, income tax. Each month when I make a paycheck, a certain amount is taken out and already paid to the government. It is taken out of my income, which is why it's called an income tax. Now, you guys are teenagers and you don't have an income quite yet, but you are consumers and you do buy things. Every time you buy something at that point of sale, you are charged something called sales tax. Now, the sales tax rate in Virginia is 5.3%. There is an additional 0.7% tax imposed on the localities that make up Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads. So you can see that part of the overall 6% tax for Virginia, the overall 6% tax, part of it is specific here to Northern Virginia. So in Virginia, we pay a 6% sales tax rate. A sales tax is a tax paid to a governing body for the sales of certain goods or services. Laws allow or require the seller to collect these taxes at the point of sale. Now, before the taxes are added, you have something called the subtotal. Just wanted to point out that we call it a subtotal before we add tax. Now, down here, we've got the purple numbers filled in from class the other day. And I'm actually going to use, just because of space, I'm going to use the bottom example with the sweater. Now, the sweater, we were already told back on page 1, the sweater started out at $34.99, and we already took 30% off, meaning we already subtracted the $10.50. And that's how we got the amount that we're looking at here on page 3. So now, with the discount, the sweater costs $24.49. At this point, we have to calculate a 6% sales tax. So all we do is we take the subtotal, which is the $24.99, and we multiply it by the sales tax percent as a decimal, and that gives us the tax that we owe. So if we multiply $24.49 by the 0.06, we get that the sales tax would be $1.45, and all we have to do is add that $1.45 to get the actual cost of the sweater, $25.94. All right? So all you have to do to calculate tax is multiply each of these numbers that are purple by 0.06. Round it to the nearest hundredth, and that's your tax. Then, of course, you need to add it. You're going to try this section right here. I'm going to erase it right now. That's what you're doing right now. If you need to pause the video, you can pause, but you're basically taking each of these numbers and multiplying by 0.06 to get the sales tax. Don't forget you got to round that number to the nearest hundredth, and when you've rounded that number to the nearest hundredth, you simply come through and add it to that number, and you get the total. So go ahead and hit pause if you need to. We will go over those answers that you should get. We will go over those answers that you should get at the bottom of page 3. Now go ahead and flip. We're going to skip over page 4. So now you can join me on page 5. At any point in the video, folks, if you need to pause it so that you can just copy some of the stuff down, that's fine. But for the taxes, I want to remind you that taxes are added to the original or the starting amount. For the first question about Jason, I'm actually going to explain two methods. If there's a TV that costs $2,200 and it's 5% off, or sorry, excuse me, if there's a 5% tax, we can simply, for method A over here, we can multiply the subtotal by the tax percent. Then we can get that we'd owe $110 in tax. We add that to the $2,200 and we get $2,310 for the total price of the TV. Now, over here for method B, I want to point out that you have to pay 100% for the TV. You also have to pay an additional 5% for tax, which means you're paying 105% for the product. You pay the full amount for the TV plus 5%. So all I'm doing over here is multiplying by 105% as a decimal, and that goes ahead and adds in the tax for me to get the actual price of the TV. It doesn't matter to me if you want to use method A to find the tax first, then add it, or for method B, you're just multiplying by 1.05, which already adds in the tax for you. Now let's take a look at the second example. Emily purchased a new pair of sunglasses for $120. Here's a 5% tax rate. How much did she pay for the glasses? Now I want to point out that to find 5%, it's super easy. You take 120, move the decimal once for 10%. That'd be $12. Now cut it in half and you get the $6 tax. You can take the $6 and add it and find out that the sunglasses would cost $126. A more efficient method would be to realize that you have to pay 100% for the sunglasses plus 5% for tax. So you're paying 105%. And if you go ahead and multiply 120 by 1.05, that tells you the total price with tax included. All right, for the next one, Brock bought a video game for $55. Sales tax is 5%. How much tax will he pay? So for this one, we need to use method A because we're only being asked to multiply by the 5% sales tax. The question is not asking us for the total cost of the game, so we would not want to go with method B. Now there's a practice problem that I'd like you to try on your own. Hopefully through the 3 examples, you've learned how to calculate sales tax and find the total price of something. After you try that one, you can resume the video and we can talk about gratuity. So hit pause if you need to finish the practice problem and then move on with me. Now as a consumer, there are plenty of ways and times when we need to say thank you for really a good job well done. Tip in a restaurant, if you want to tip your waiter or waitress, the fancy word for that is called gratuity. You might have noticed at the bottom of some receipts when you're in a restaurant, or excuse me, at the bottom of some menus, it'll say gratuity already included for parties of 6 or more. What that means is at the end, they're not asking you to tip. They've gone ahead and included a 20% tip, and it's going to be, that's in the total charge for the table. At that point, you don't need to tip any additional amount. That's only at restaurants, and most times it'll be for a party of 6 or more where they're already going to include it. Now for the first example here, we have that Rachel's family went to Outback and it cost $86 and they want to leave a 20% tip. First, to find the 20% tip, all we do is multiply 0.20 times 86. I want to remind you guys that you could find 10% by moving the decimal over once. And now you could just double that. And that's a very quick and efficient way to get the $17.20 tip. That needs to get added to the 86. And we would see that Rachel's family would spend $103.20 total at Outback. I'd like for you to try these 2 problems below. Carefully read the question. Make sure you're answering. If I ask for a tip, give me the tip amount. If I ask for the total amount, please give me the total amount. That takes care of this page. And when you're done with these practice questions, you can move on. If you need to pause the video now to work on these, that's okay. Just hit play when you're ready on the next page. Now this next page is designed to be something that you should be able to do completely on your own. I want you to try this entire page on your own. For the first problem, I've just kind of got it underlined for you. The initial price of the iPad, the discount is 20% off, and we want to know the sale price. This page is kind of a mixed review. Some of the problems are discounts, some of them are taxes, some of them are gratuity problems. It's up to you to read the problem and answer it correctly. Now, as I scroll down, whoops, let me undo that real quick. As I scroll, let's take a look at the challenge question. The challenge question has two calculations in them. I am asking you to calculate the tax that would have to get added. Go ahead and add the tax. That becomes the new subtotal. Then we want to calculate 20% on the new number after you've already included tax. So your first step is going to be 4250 times 0.05 just to get the amount of tax. That amount needs to get added to 4250, and now you have the new total. At this point, that new total would have to get multiplied by 20% to figure out just the tip amount. And at that point, you would take the gratuity and add it back to that total. And that is going to be our final answer. We will review that problem after you've had a chance to complete it on your own. Now that kind of takes care of the tax tip discount part of our consumer unit, where the percentages are going to be whole numbers. We are eventually moving to simple interest. Before you watch the next video on simple interest, I want you to decide, when is interest a good thing for the consumer and when is it a bad thing? At this point, you're done with these pages and there's going to be another video.